All right, we're
What's it
back.
called? It's called a service call, you say?
Yes, it's called a service call. Okay, let's see how much more of this ridiculous nonsense I can get through. By the way, I went through the. I was looking through their budget. I have a whole bunch of pages on my new blog, which is rantings of a former Trimet bus driver.com. The new material is no longer being put on Blogspot. Looking for more information about this so-called fiscal cliff, and I was unable to find anything as of yet. I mean, I've gone through the thing is 160 pages, and you'd think they would talk about this at the very beginning in the introduction, but there's no information about this in the budget so far. So, and I have a whole page of other questionable items that I saw was as I was going through their budget. That you can see that on that blog if you're interested. And I know nobody cares, but it's there if you're interested.
I mean, you can't recover from no increases for as many years as we haven't had an increase in just 1 year. That would be too
Yeah, see, now she's setting up a false narrative there. She's making it sound like this is I'm not going to go through all these documents again and show it to you. The payroll tax, the money that's always assured, is the payroll tax. The fares have never been much of an issue in terms of overall budget of TriMet. As we've said a million times, the budget of TriMet is 1.9 billion. The fares represent 50 million. So you figure it out yourself. So she's setting this, I don't have to keep going over this. I mean, if you don't know by now, this is all bullshit. I can't help you.
draconian, I think, for the public and everyone to absorb. I recall at one point in our many sessions around understanding the budget and fiscal realities of the agency of saying the longer we wait, the bigger the cost to the individual transit rider is. Had we made decisions 10 years ago and stayed with our $5 or $10 every other year, we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Yeah, and then nobody would have been on your transit because at the time they did raise the fares back when they raised them to the highest possible fare in the country. Okay, and they're still not higher than high fares. They're still, go Google it yourself. Transit fares, USA, you'll see the only good deal at TriMet is actually the day pass. Everything else is pretty much the same.
Right. Director Gonzalez.
Ozzy. Ozzy. Hey, Ozzy, I'm sorry I pissed you off, but Ozzy did a tweet. he was defending police brutality. Now, I generally don't get involved with Ozzy's Twitter account. I just leave it alone. But he made this tweet defending police brutality, and I felt obliged to respond to that. And he ended up, let's just say, it ended up with him saying, "I'm going to get out of this sewer called Twitter." He kind of lost his cool a bit. Look, Ozzy, it's nothing personal. I like you personally. But if you're going to tweet a controversial opinion, and you're going to have, you can always make your tweets private. Lots of people don't let me see their tweets for that reason. They're scared that Al might bring up a contrary point. You can always just block me or do your tweets private. But I will respond to controversial stuff. I don't care what you say or do on Twitter, Ozzy. I'm not interested.
Thank you, President Simmons. I got a couple of questions. First, are we bound by state statute with regards to the percent subsidy for youth as we are with our honored citizens?
I don't believe so, and I think that's a great question because I think it sets up sort of how fares.
They always say it's a great question.
So you're not going to pay for the pendant?
I'll pay for the pendant.
Okay, thank you. That's reasonable.
Even though you blow all your money on other stuff. That's completely wasteful, huh?
I have to spend it. If I don't spend it...
No, you don't. You can put it under your mattress.
if you assume our fare and our
$10.
costs and our operations, you should really think of the adult fare cost, and everything below the adult fare cost, except for the paratransit, is something that previous boards have instituted or asked for some sort of
All
subsidy
right, okay,
or
look,
less
you pay
than,
for the service
right? So
quality.
we're not required to provide a youth fare. We do so because previous boards, that's a value of the organization. So from a financial standpoint, we're operating at a little bit of a loss there, but we said it's okay. So I think sometimes it gets confusing. So when you start thinking about future ridership or what our fare, our revenue should be, it's really more about
Yeah.
rides times the fare of the adult system, and that's what more
Okay,
operational
fine.
budget reality or
You can
sustainable
turn it
budget
off right from coming up and it going right there. It's right there.
plan would look like.
Let me try it another way. I'm asking if we're, much like with state statute, we're bound to subsidize 50% of honored citizens, but we cannot go to 60% or 40%. We'll now go from the state.
I don't know about that, Ozzy. I think there's certain requirements of the American Disabilities Act for people that cannot access your transit fare. That's not state statute. That's federal statute.
Are we similarly bound by state statute to be at 50% subsidy for youth pass?
No, it's federal.
It's not in there.
And it's not state, it's federal.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and
Yeah, see, even he knows that, which I would hope he does. He knows.
right, and it's a federal discount that the FTA and folks are applying to our paratransit.
Yeah.
Sorry, to our honored citizen. But not youth. That youth is a local decision.
A local decision.
Yes, right. Most of this, almost all of this, you can do what you want. I mean, it's up to the local jurisdictions. They set a guideline, but then the local jurisdictions can do what they want. They can go. You can see there's fare free all around the country right now. Granted, they're not the huge systems, but Trimet's not really a huge system. They're not a BART. They're not a MBTA. They're not a New York MTA. It's a smaller system.
Thank you. That helps.
Director
Because
Gonzalez.
I wanted to go to the next question, and this is around, I think Nancy Young Oliver mentioned that we are not only looking at fares and how we're going to address this potential cliff we've been referring to down the road.
Where's the cliff? Where's the cliff, you lying bastards?
But the payroll tax.
Oh, the other point I wanted to make out was the fiscal cliff is the equivalent of the Better Ed project. Okay? The fiscal cliff is almost the equivalent of the Powell garage remodel. So remember that. Remember, their fiscal cliff is a lie.
Are we relying on voters at this point for any sort of changes or proposed changes for modifications to the payroll tax structure? What I'm saying is, how are we active in addressing conversations about any modifications to payroll taxes? Or are we relying on the general public and our legislators to drive a conversation about payroll tax?
So Director Gonzalez, the finance team runs numerous forecast scenarios, including a scenario that continues the incremental increase in our employer payroll taxes. But that particular increase, that discussion and vote is really for another day. Our base modeling does not include a tax increment beyond what the board has currently approved. JC, would you like to add anything?
I would just say that we, Director Gonzalez, we have to have those conversations with folks still to come, and I would second that it's a conversation that we are not prepared to have today. I would also like to follow up on a question you had around the youth fair and why it is what it is. This board back years ago decided to pair, as we were getting ready for the implementation of the HOP system. The prior board chose to equate the honored citizen fare and our youth fare at 50% of the adult fare, and so that's what we have moved forward with. It is actually in our fare code that that the youth fare will have parity with the honored citizen. So that's why we have that level as where we got today.
Thank you. So I appreciate that clarification. I want to emphasize, based on the public comments we've been receiving, several comments, I'd say a majority of comments we've received from the public have spoken towards how we can resolve this issue by changing things in the payroll tax. And so I just wanted to emphasize that right now, we're not forecasting any policy changes at the state level to the payroll tax or how it functions or how it feeds our particular system. And I encourage voters that to bring those ideas to their House district legislator because there's going to be a legislative cycle coming up. And there's things that that were brought to Trimet as part of our fair conversation that are really statewide measures. There's multiple systems out there that would be impacted by this conversation. And I think it's wise to look at our current payroll as part of the ecosystem, but I encourage those in the public to lean into this conversation with legislators as well, because this is something that's beyond the scope of Trimet itself. And now I'll close on a quick comment. There's something that is within the scope of Trimet that I'm curious of if we've considered this or what would the process be to institute something of this nature? I know that our forecasts are just that. And when we try to forecast ridership, I appreciate that we understood that there might be an immediate drop of the emotional response to a fare change and perhaps a rise over time as we expand system services and as people regain that faith. Considered in this getting the HOP card rolled out and expanded, any sort of promotional exercises that are going to encourage people to begin using the pass. I would suggest us we consider things like an enrollment window where for the first month or the first 3 months, the cap is lower than, it's half of what it would be in the normal month, just to encourage that person to begin really getting familiar with the system and to tap multiple
Yeah, that's a very
times.
nice idea, but it's not going to happen. These ideas are just pie in the sky stuff. Okay, the target population isn't listening to any of this. Do you understand? They're not listening to me. They're not listening to you. They're not listening to the board. They're not listening to Gardner. They're not listening to any of us. So these ideas are useless to them.
When they become that first-time enrollee. Things like that, I think, are going to help us in addition to public communications campaigns so that our citizens know all of the qualifying criteria and our low-income citizens know all of the qualifying.
Great points, Director Gonzalez,
Great point.
and we are
We always
expecting.
love to hear you. Yeah, thank you for the question. Or great question, great points. Everything is great. Our answers are always the same.
As when we say expand again, there's a ton of sub strategies, and there will be a large marketing campaign, and we are setting aside
A
resources.
large marketing campaign, completely useless. Don't forget, they're still cut. Their service is still 20% cut, by the way. Okay.
As part of that $29 million to provide a free month pass as part of the registration, which if you do the math on that, that actually is greater than the cost increase, at least for people when they first sign up for the reduced fare program and the honored citizen program. And that honored citizen benefit, Director Edwards, is a new benefit meant to sort of meet the request for even greater discounts for our honored citizens. So those things are embedded when we say expand, and I think they're going to produce really good enrollment and results for the riders.
So something,
All right, here's the federal regulations, by the way. All right. The federal regulations provide you may not charge more than half of the peak fare or fixed route during off-peak hours. You can do better than that, but it says you cannot charge more. It doesn't say anything you can't charge less. Okay. It could be 25% of the regular fare. You cannot charge more than half the regular fare, but there's nothing that says you can't charge less than half.
that I want to emphasize for the full board that we've heard today is that should the board go forward with an increase, in some ways we have to, number one, trust what what the staff have told us about the,
In some ways, you mean in all the ways, you don't have any way to check other than them. They give you all the information comes from them, and no, you cannot trust what they say. Okay, let me go look for. I'm looking for a lift incident here.
Hi, this is 329. I was just attacked by a German Shepherd.
There it is.
I am bleeding. I have a wound that requires stitches. I need help, and I need you to send out relief and take me out of service and whatnot because I need to go to the hospital. This looks like I got a gash that needs stitches.
Wow. Hey, there he is. How you doing, Bear? Where you been? You been playing games?
Cooking?
Huh?
Are you cooking?
No.
I had to help somebody today.
You
church.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right.
I'll catch up with you.
All right, I'll be here. I can't. Okay. All right, sorry.
the fiscal realities of the agency. 2, we have to trust the staff that they're going to look for mitigations.
Yeah, sure.
Either we'll make sure the existing mitigations are working or what additional mitigations need to take place. And that 3, as a board, we have to exercise our responsibility to support the staff and the agency to make sure that the resources are available to sustain this service, which is so.
And they're trying to argue, of course, that the $5 million is a threat to the service. Now, if you have any thinking skills left in your mind, you can see this is a lie because they're talking about $5 million at the most per year, at the most, if there's no extra riders.
Vital to the region. And so oftentimes I think I find myself struggling between an individual who experiences cost increases and my responsibility to an agency that relies on adequate resources to be able to be a viable resource continually for the community. And so as board, we have to weigh that.
So what she's saying is, I'd rather step on the people that use the system than impede the agency itself. Okay, so as you can see, she's very insincere trying to make that argument.
That our concern for individual as well as our concern just to make sure that the agency continues into perpetuity. So
and your problem is not the fares, it's everything else that Trimet is into. The real money has nothing to do with the ridership or the transit system. Anybody who has any education about this at all knows this.
I mention that because I see that kind of tension and that struggle between us as individual board members and
yeah, they just don't have a clue. They're trying to set up this false paradigm that without this fare increase, we're going to collapse. It's just a lie. It's just a bull-faced lie. And you see all the transit systems across the country following the same script.
So I think we need, I feel a sense of trust and belief in the agency personnel and the leadership.
Yeah. I don't feel any trust at all in the agency personnel. I think they're liars. They've lied continually about everything, and they're still lying. For a year and a half straight, they told the public they were going to bring back the service. And then all of a sudden they changed that to, oh, we're going to do Forward Together. So we don't have any trust in the leadership team because they're shameless technocrats without consciences. They're careerists. They only care about their careers.
To not just throw things, make it so that it's impossible for people to continue to use this service and consider it a viable alternative. So I want to look to see if there are any other questions or comments before. Yes, Director Edwards.
I have a comment. In light of that I think the staff has done a great job in bringing us the information that we requested. I think that we were a little...
Goddamn hack. They have not illustrated for you factually where the fiscal cliff is. They just keep saying it. I just told you, I looked through the whole budget. I saw no mention of it.
A little bit remiss in not giving them the parameters that we needed in order to make the decision. That's why we're still asking these same questions, or not the same questions, but
they didn't give you any information. There's no information there. That's why I can't watch these people. You're watching hypocrite liars, and they know what they're doing. They're trying to make cover for the management here.
different questions, and I think that that's the fault of us not having a little bit more foresight in looking at all the factors that we're going to be weighing in making the decision.
It's a complex topic, and I'm reminded that
it's not a complex topic. Go to my blog, okay? Go to my blog, which is right here, and scroll down to where here's all Ozzy's pictures, by the way. Let's go past Ozzy. Look at how cute Ozzy was. That's Ozzy. Fiscal cliff, here it is. Find the fiscal cliff page, click page 2, and you will see the so-called fiscal cliff. It's not there, folks. All of the information you need is right here. Look at all this pork. Even the West budget, the goddamn white elephant of Trimet, has increased. Look at this, man. From 5.9 million to 8.26 million. The worst performing service of the goddamn agency, which is a waste, has increased its budget by 2.1 million, which is half of the fare increase. Okay? So there's no cliff. They're lying. Look at this one. Take a look at this. Okay. Here's safety and security 2021. Can you see it? Oh, probably can't. 20 million. Now look at what it is now. 65 million. That's triple. That's 40 million. That's 8 fiscal cliffs. So it's just a lie.
in my tenure on the board, which exceeds some of your tenure, is that we started this conversation, I remember, in September 29th of 2020, in terms of board work sessions to understand the budget realities of the organization. And we then repeatedly...
Unfortunately, you're lying, and some of us know that. You're just lying. It's just a bold-faced lie, and we know it. And you're just lucky that I don't have any followers, and my message can't get out, and the mainstream media ignores the facts. It's just that's how it works in this country now. The media is the government, and will not do any kind of investigation on the government.
Have had successive work sessions to understand this. It's a complex organization. It's far more...
It's a complex organization with so much fat in it that it's just absurd. It's got more and more bureaucracy. I have a picture of that too, how that... Look, they're just lying. I can't take... I have to stop. It's too much. You can listen to them.